Extraterrestrial Beings versus Spiritual and Physical World. A fragment of the book Forbidden Knowledge. Many of us, being at the beginning of our journey, focus on one specific subject of our greatest interest. We think information from this particular field are in a way more vital than similar data presented by other branches. Many years back, in the beginning of my journey and discovery of unknown, I was a person more focused on spiritual aspects than on any other elements of reality. My biggest passion were extraterrestrial civilizations in particular, but observed during journeys outside of body and interactions on the astral level. I was aware of UFO subjects' existence, but the hype about kidnappings, implants and allegedly crashed spaceships in the past, and also poor quality of investigations and photographs, it all made me to grow apart from this environment. Initially, the topic seemed far less fascinating than picturesque descriptions of out-of-body experiences, visions, channelings and many other ways of spiritual world explorations with the power of human mind. This is when I realized, by observing my own approach to the subjects and groups interested in them, they are nearly two different worlds. You may be fond of observations and UFO pictures, yet never go for the literature describing spiritual contacts. You may never experience the contacts yourself. You may experience visions, meditate, experience outside of your body journeys, read spiritual literature, and at the same time, despise technological side of an issue. My experiences caused my bigger interest in physical contacts and material side of civilization's interferences into life on Earth. I'm sure, waking up in the middle of a night to see a tangible probe above your head would convince anyone to pay more attention to this subject. That example, and a few other I've described in the very beginning of this book. I've noticed a common mistake, which both environments, the seekers and explorers of unknown, specialized in their narrow field, constantly make. We came to conclusion that the extraterrestrial civilizations, which make contact with us on spiritual level, are something completely different from what we could have observed on a physical level. In reality, they are some sort of collective empires, spreading not only sideways taking the nations, continents and planets, but also in depth, taking over multiplicity of reality levels. Everything is connected. Some wise man said once, advanced technology would be undistinguishable from magic for a regular man. This saying might be true in case of the lack of scientific knowledge on appropriate level, and scientific knowledge is in the constant progress. For that to happen, we have to stop believe blindly and just settle for convenient stories. We have to start investigating, discovering, verifying what is behind phenomena seemingly impossible to explain. Why, as a humanity, we assume that everything placed on the level we call spiritual is something magical and exists outside of any scientific, logical explanation. Why we often assume and believe in irrational functioning of spiritual world, settling on usually nonsensical explanation, religions. Why do we assume scientific research, obviously the ones far more advanced than present ones, is incapable of giving an explanation for the way a reality, which now, because of lack of any other name, we call spiritual? Why so many people go for a blind belief, while we can actually investigate and verify many of the information? Material level is described by a modern science called physics, defining basic qualities of reality, perceivable with 5 senses. Spiritual level is described by so-called metaphysics, which does exactly the same. It described the qualities of metaphysical reality, perceivable by transcendental receptors, so not only by 5 basic material senses. Metaphysics is less popular and less comprehensible expression than spiritual world for an average human. Due to fewer features characteristic for religious beliefs, it gives much better understanding that we are talking about a level of existence as rationally functioning and built from some sort of matter, as 5 senses reality. Perhaps both sciences, physics and metaphysics, should be one unity? Then, who knows, maybe if science deriving from metaphysics would find many useful answers and missing pieces of a puzzle. Many civilizations perceiving by us on physical level during various types of events, passage of their spaceships, kidnappings or encounters that many people experienced, have an ability to move in the phase. What we could picturesquely define as transitioning between levels of reality or moving between a known physical reality and metaphysical. I call it tuning, as it resemblances radio pitching to another frequency. This is very similar to a process I've described in the previous part of a book. Thanks to that technology, they can go through the walls and bend the reality in many different ways, adjusting it to their needs. Some advanced metaphysical civilizations, especially those deriving from higher levels of spiritual world, have the capability to thicken their structure and manifest themselves on thicker levels of reality, stepping down to lower level, similar to angelic descendants showed in movies, or even actual materializing in physical world. As long as we will consider these two worlds, in fact not only two but many different levels, which I avoid to specify to keep the clarification of the description, separate entities, we won't understand what happens to us and why the reality is the way it is. Physical and metaphysical reality are one and the same thing. People just haven't improved the extrasensual abilities to perceive a metaphysical reality yet. Not all extraterrestrial civilizations are able to perceive higher levels of metaphysical reality. That is why humanity evokes such interest and is a subject of many experiments. They can see our capability to connect material world with access to high levels of spiritual world in our bodies. Evidently, some of the civilizations lack such ability. Because they're unable to perceive what we do, their attempts of investigations and understanding last so long and don't bring expected results. It is one of the reasons of breeding the hybrids of our species with some extraterrestrial civilizations, to create a new branch of evolution, which would allow them to escape the current restriction. They usually do it with no empathy, callously, exactly because they don't have a factor we do. They can't understand the issue in a way we can. Imagine a powerful, extremely advanced technological empire which discovers some beings have access to the space they've never even dreamt of. Obviously, they try to, as any empire of such type, to get the possibility to expand on new territories. On the other hand, there are civilizations called by us spiritual ones, of very high ethical standards, still in convention of technological civilizations. Their technology and deep emotional sensitivity go hand in hand. It's important to remember, rejection of technological development in the name of spirituality is a huge mistake. Often, it's one of the programs drilled in people to control their development. It's just a poor conviction that the technology is something evil and against the God's will or some mystical world. Having such opinion, no wonder people tended to stay in medieval ages backwardness and intellectual ignorance for such long time. We have to change this belief and our approach. Obviously, we can't go to the other extreme, overusing technology. Alongside with technological development, should go the need for balancing factor of ethical behavior and higher values, the spiritual ones. Otherwise, we might end up like those callous civilizations conducting experiments on people, searching where exactly human soul is placed. I'm fully confident the balance between physical and spiritual factors, and acknowledging that they are one entity, are the only way for breaking out and developing our potential. We need to know and understand how does the surrounding world work, and to do that, first we need to understand the technological side of it. Having a technological knowledge, constantly we should live according to the higher values typically assigned to spirituality. World of technology, which captivates people or any other beings, is just a sign of failure and spiritual degradation. Technology, which helps you grow, reach for freedom and develop your potential, is a sign of a high spiritual value. These are two different terms, but actually the same phenomena. It was a fragment of the book Forbidden Knowledge entitled Extraterrestrial Beings vs. Spiritual and Physical World. Link to the full book in the description below.